This is Helen bringing you another episode of the Summoning Circle. Today, I have summoned our narrative designer, Jon Olson. This has been an episode I've been really looking forward to because lore is my favorite part of any video game, and I have some narrative design experience myself. Jon's background is actually in film. He had 15 years of experience freelancing on independent projects and teaching at the New York Film Academy before joining our team at Bisonic. His journey into game development began with Scions of Destiny, which was a digital hybrid tabletop RPG he co-designed with Tanillo, who you might remember from episode 2 of this series. And now we're lucky enough to have both of these friends working on the Forgotten Runiverse. Please welcome Jon to the Summoning Circle.
Thank you.
Hey, Jon.
Nice to be here.
Hi, I'm really excited to talk to you. So my first question is, well, I'm going to take a wild guess and say you were probably a fan of science fiction and fantasy genres before Forgotten Runiverse.
Yeah, I'm a huge nerd. I grew up, playing Magic and reading The Wheel of Time. I loved, Princess Bride and Willow were like the big fantasy movies before Lord of the Rings. So yeah, I've been in it since, probably my middle school years on.
Now, with Forgotten Runiverse specifically, we're blending the science fiction and fantasy genres in a really interesting way. And I know that presents some unique challenges. And one of those for you as our narrative designer has been finding a way to get a great narrative voice that represents all these different narrative voices we've had across like 10,000 wizards in the Forgotten Runiverse. Some of them being really scary, some of them being funny, some of them being cute. I'm wondering how you approached finding the right voice for our game with all of that input in mind.
Yeah, so like what's kind of both cool and challenging about the Runiverse is that it's so community based. So you do have a lot of these different styles coming in. I've seen some art that's very kind of like grim and like dystopian, and you see others that is just very fanciful, very playful. So we kind of went for something that's a little bit in the middle. If I had to compare it to something else, I'd say maybe a tad more serious than Hearthstone, right? Like maybe not quite as self-serious as Warcraft to kind of use those benchmarks. So something that's lighthearted, but with a little bit of flexibility. Like as we release new areas of the map over time, I'm sure the themes will adjust slightly. So something like the Dream Master Lake is probably going to be very different from something like the Vampire Mist, right? And so we can kind of tailor to the releases and sort of the mini stories happening within each of those releases.
I love a narrative plan. That's exciting. So I also read the beautiful short story that you submitted when applying to the narrative designer position here. It's called Song of Chasing, and to me, it was a story about the journey of self-discovery. So whether that be about finding a sense of belonging or a goal or one's place in the world, even the name, right, implies chasing, a song of chasing something. And I'm sure many people watching can identify with that struggle. I know I do. I'm wondering if there's a moment from your career that inspired you to explore these themes in this story.
I've always liked kind of adventure stories that have sort of this idea of coming of age. I think stories, books, and films have a power to sort of condense something that in real life takes a very long and slow process to like find who you are. But in a movie or in a book or a video game, you can have a build up to like this really big cathartic moment where you have like these kind of life-changing revelations. And I look at storytelling kind of like a puzzle, a challenge where you try to build up to some kind of catharsis, right? Some kind of true satisfaction, right? With good setups and payoffs and fun characters along the way. So
yeah, I did this drawing to give our viewers a sense of the scenery of the three protagonists climbing the sand dunes to this mystical land that is dangerous and beautiful. I've also pulled some quotes that a bunch of us on the marketing side really enjoyed, and I'm wondering if you'd be open to expanding upon any of them.
Sure. This is great, by the way. I can't believe you drew this. I was
Thank you so much. It's one of my favorite things to do. Um, okay, music is logic applied to chaos. I mean, setting aside how that theme of chaos applies so well to our game, you were already wrestling with it a bit here. Do you want to expand on it?
Yeah, I mean, I part of my film background was in sound, and I'm not a musician, but I've kind of taken some time to do a lot of reading about it and like a lot of study of just the art of sound, sound recording. Um, and I love just this concept that like, I think storytelling in general is logic applied to chaos, that we try to make sense of the world, and like music is a really great way to do that. And storytelling isn't like, it's just a form of storytelling. And that's like, you strike the right chord and you'll just feel it.
Mm. Oh, certainly, that's good art. I mean, that's what it's all about. This next quote for us: Zeke had never paid much attention to spiritual matters. He was too busy trying to run faster and longer than anyone. I know for me, this spoke a lot about my own experiences. I'm wondering if you could expand upon this idea of the difference between trying to run and achieve a goal and finding the spiritual elements of life along the way, how important they are, whether they're important, especially in creative processes.
Yeah, I guess for me, sort of in the context of the story of this quote, is sort of this idea that like it's important to stop and process things along the way. That like you can be doing, and like the goal becomes so single focused that you forget to stop and kind of go, why? Why am I doing this? Um, like, does it, is it important? Does it matter? And when even when the answer is yes, it's very important. I think it's good for us to stop and kind of um, acknowledge that, right? Like when we talk about, in this sense, when I use the word spiritual, it's more about sort of self-understanding and that sense of wholeness that I think we all kind of look for, right? That like, there's this idea that we all have a void within us that we're always trying to fill, and I think proper assessment is like one of the best ways to do that.
Beautiful. So I'd also like to take a moment to talk about Scions of Destiny because it highlights not only your passion for games, but the bond that you and Tanilo shared even before you joined the Bisonic team. What came through to me when I looked at the designs for Scions of Destiny was this incredible attention to detail, how much care you both put into all of this. And I thought, I mean, especially with this detailed map, with all these names, the world development, I thought these guys were destined to work on Forgotten Runiverse. But before that destiny could unfold, you had to face what had to have been a daunting task of securing funding for a passion project. Um, and I know a lot of artists face this, so I'm hoping you could talk to us about what that process was like and how you kept your creative spirit alive throughout all of it.
Yeah, it was. We worked on it for about 2 years, just on the side, um, and it's really how I got to know was through developing this game. I mean, I'd met him beforehand, and we'd had a couple conversations about some creative stuff, and he'd mentioned that he was a writer as well, and that's initially kind of why I hired him, because I knew the game. I had a base concept, and I knew the game was gonna need a lot of writing, and turned out he was also like a really great game designer. That's kind of how I found out that. The tables wound up turning a few years later, when he needed a writer. Um, he asked me to apply, but developing this, I love world building, and we spent a ton of time just trying to like make it feel rich and cohesive. We put together a huge package. We thought we had a shot at a pretty good grant. And we got like disqualified on a really odd technicality that like we wanted to challenge, but by the time it came around, it was kind of it was too late because of the way that we were integrating a separate app in with a board game. It was like, I guess it was a little confusing to the grant holders. um, but I think it was just like in the design process, coming up with new things, refining them. And we had a huge branching storyline system where we wanted to like really kind of focus on big, meaningful choices. And so it was just really easy to stay involved. And I could have done it for a lot longer if we'd been able to quit our day jobs and do it. Um, and it's so nice to be able to work on Runiverse where it's like I can do this full time and just like dedicate all this time to writing characters and kind of ideating with the design team on where we're going to go with the story.
It sounds to me like you're the kind of person who creates because he must. Like, it's not exactly that you like kept the spirit of inspiration alive. It's like, I just don't know how else to be. I must create worlds. I love creating rich lore.
Yeah, I art in all its forms. It's like I do art for a living, I write for a living and design, and on the side I draw and I write. And yeah, I don't know what I'd be if I wasn't sort of in a creative position, I'd be doing it all the time in my spare time anyway. So I've always kind of geared myself towards trying to kind of I think it's like the millennial goal to turn your hobbies into your career. Um, so I've largely done that.
Yeah, I'd say so, definitely. So you've mentioned before that writing is your first love, and if it weren't such a solitary craft, you might never have gone into film. I find that really interesting, and honestly, I relate to this idea that you find yourself drawn to a craft that demands solitude, yet you love to surround yourself with people and be in social settings. So I'm curious, do you think you could ever choose between the two, or do you need to balance solitude and collaboration?
I think for me the balance is important. I feel like I'm a part-time introvert, where like I need some time to kind of like do my own thing and process. And even with writing, it's like sometimes I just want to like, I like kind of step away from the computer, walk and ideate, or just kind of like write by myself on the monitor without a lot of distractions. And then other times it's really nice to like get feedback and like, kind of do this story improv with the team and like, really kind of refine things out with people and bounce your ideas off people. Because the longer you spend alone, the more you kind of, at least in my experience, you kind of like start to question or like really go like, is this something that matters to anyone but me? Whereas if you have a group, like, it's just so nice to kind of get that feedback. And I think, yeah, really for me, it's like I try to find a balance in both.
Yeah, beautiful. I learned the term omnivert pretty recently. I thought that was a good one. We have passed the phase where we're saying you're either an extrovert or an introvert. We can be omniverts now, John. That's my good word.
Everything is a spectrum, really. Like,
So
pretty
true.
much, yeah. Like, I've never been a big fan of this or that black and white thinking. Like, the whole world's a big old spectrum. So, yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So what advice would you give to any potential writers, aspiring writers who might be watching now?
Yeah, I think the best advice I would give to writers, or really anyone, is to find your people. Like, find other people who love the same things you love. Get a writers group. Like, find other people who are good at giving brutal, critical feedback, right? And like be willing to like get criticism. I would say is important. But like, yeah, just like life is better shared. And even if you're doing something solitary, um, it's better, it's more fun to play together, right? Like we're making an MMO here. It's all about teamwork. And, so many of what we've designed are designed to be collaborative efforts. And that's not really an accident, and I think, just in terms of my personal advice, it's like find your people. That will open up more doors than anything you could ever do otherwise. It's just like do the thing you like and find other people who also like that thing.
So you mentioned the teamwork we're doing here on Forgotten Runiverse. I'm hoping you can leave us with a bit of a teaser of the story coming with our first update, The Moonlit Wilds.
Moonlit Wilds. I don't want to give too specific, but what's really exciting about this is that like we've done a few betas up till now, but all of those have been very kind of like placeholder in terms of story. And like, this is the first time we're truly unveiling the narrative element of the game. The rumor system has not really been seen in any of the betas. And the three new dungeons that we're introducing were like the first three that I'd worked on. The previous two that everyone's seen actually came after these three in terms of when we created the ideas for them. So this one goes way back. So for me, I'm like really excited for people to see these three dungeons. I'll say that they have a bit of a connected story. And I'm really, the art team has done such an amazing job bringing these things to life. And just like myself, the design team, the game designers, the level designers, we put just like our hearts and souls into not only the dungeons, but just like the whole build. And yeah, I'm excited for people to kind of get introduced to the story of the game. And I hope we do justice to the property, and like we want to try and continue incorporating the community and their feedback and like who they are into the game as we go forward. So like we'll be looking for what people latch onto from this build. We want to have a communication with the audience, with the people, with the wizards of the Runiverse, right? Like it's their world, and I'm honored to be able to craft some structure around it, and hopefully we can make that stronger and stronger and stronger. So
I think you can, John. I really do.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the release. Yeah, there's a lot I feel like that people who've played the beta might not be expecting. So.
Yeah, I think so too. Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. And as you said, that iterative process, hearing feedback from the community and your openness to it, Tanilla's openness to it, the whole team's, I think that's a game changer. That's what makes this game and this team, in my view. So happy to be part of it. Before we go, I want to share one more quote from A Song of Chasing. "Would you join me for a song, Long Runner?" King gestured to his instrument. "The wind is in our favor. The song will sail upon the sands." "I do not sing for strangers," Kachara said, reaching for the small flute tied to her arm. "So a wind accompaniment will have to satisfy." "I will look forward to our second meeting then, when we are no longer strangers." Soon, we're going to meet a whole bunch of people with this Q1 launch. Is there anything you'd like to say to them as we sign off on this conversation now?
Yeah, just that I'm very excited for everybody to join us in this world we've been building for the last few years, and I'm looking forward to us all no longer being strangers.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining me, John.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. What do I do with my hands?
Like Frankenfurter.
A little Talladega Nights reference there.